You look at the likes of James Smith and so on and so forth, and he talks about the concept that he started making content, dodgy little white wall in his lounge room with a shitty little camera, but he started when others just did not start. And look, that's definitely a philosophy that I've taken on. And that's also comes down to training. You must start. The longer you hold off, the harder it becomes. And that brain's another little muscle that just needs to be pumped and continue motivation, because every time you do it, you're just one step closer to continuing to do it more and more.
The Connect Coaching Unplugged.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. This is the Connect Unplugged podcast number 31 with myself, Connor Healy, and Callum Hock. And today we have absolute legend, strength and conditioning coach Clint Hill joining us. And I'll let Callum tell the world a little bit more about you, Clint.
Yeah, Clint is a seasoned strength and conditioning coach with 26 years of experience working across elite rugby, water polo, and national sports programs. He holds 2 master degrees in biomechanics and strength and conditioning, and is certified as a level 3 strength coach by the Australian Strength and Conditioning Association. Clint has worked with professional athletes, including Olympic medalists, national team members, and world champions. His expertise spans sport-specific programs, Olympic lifting, strength training, and mentoring trainers. He is currently the high performance manager at West Harbour and head of the athletic performance for New South Wales under the 18s. He's also a super dad as well, and he's a good friend of mine, one of the guys that I've met when I moved to Avoca. Clint, great to have you here, buddy.
Hey, thank you so much. That was a hell of an intro, buddy. And I took like the word seasoned strength coach as opposed to an old man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're not there yet, buddy. It's you who actually got me inspired again this year to get back into the gym. You've got such a great, unique way of working with people, and you leverage your expertise that you've had over the last 26 years working with world champions, Olympic gold medalists, and now you're making that expertise available to a wider range of people. Before we get into that, though, how did you get started in all this? Where was the beginning for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess, for me, so I grew up in Tamworth in country New South Wales. And look, there's not a lot to do about sport. I was a pretty reasonably intelligent kid, but wanted to pretend like I wasn't. Look, I got the marks to get into medicine and whatnot. And I had a really good chat with mum, and she said, Clint, you hate shoes and you hate anything but shorts. So there's absolutely no point going down the path of medicine or anything like that, because that was just never going to work for me. So that's how I ended up in that path, and mate, off to Sydney Uni on scholarship, and mate, the rest is history, as they say.
That's pretty amazing. So you went to Sydney Uni, and then did you go overseas, or did you go straight into a strength and conditioning?
Yeah, so I did. I was still playing rugby whilst I was at uni. I did my first masters through Sydney University while I was still in Australia, and then I headed off overseas and did my second masters online. I was in the first intake ever from Edith Cowan University for strength and conditioning. We were the crash test dummies, if you will. We went through and picked the course apart and sort of ran that gauntlet. I did the last part of that back here over in Perth when I was finished my playing career. Yeah, and then went straight into to S&C, and as we said off air, my second year in, I was working for the West Tigers in the NRL here in New South Wales, and I won the premiership. So I thought that S&C was the easiest job on the planet. Most strength conditioning coaches spend their life trying to win an NRL premiership, and I got it year 2.
That would have been quite incredible. And how long? So you were with let's go back to that, because winning an NRL title is quite a significant achievement. What what did you learn as a result of that and the lead up to it? Because I remember 2005, the Tigers, it wasn't like at the time the Bulldogs were red hot and the Roosters, and the Tigers had your Benji and your Prince combination, and that is, and they took out the Cowboys in the grand final. It was almost a Cinderella story in a way, because the players were relatively up and coming, as opposed to a seasoned team that had been together for years, and they nearly won the premiership. What was it like in the sheds as such, in the lead up? As At what point did the team go, we have a chance?
Well, look, I think it'd be remiss of me to not actually fill you in on the full story there.
Okay.
The first 7 rounds, we were close to dead last.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the season from hell. We had the worst preseason. Where we had injuries. Benji redid a shoulder, etc., etc., etc. They were just like, it was a nightmare. We actually threw the whole previous plan out the window. All of the S&C stuff, all of the medical stuff. Round 3, sitting in a hotel room in Auckland, freaking out, not knowing what to do. And the calming voice of Chiriako Mesha, who I still see as a mentor to this day, sat down and said, "Look, hang on, we all know what we're doing here. Let's calm this down. Let's talk this through." Tim Sheens came into the room with Royce Simmons, and conversation allude, and we went through what that meant and how to turn the season around. And 3 weeks later, we had our first win. And from there it was a big building process right through to the final. We always had faith. There was a serious culture through that group, like nothing I've seen before. At that point in my own playing career, I'd never seen anything like it. But the boys were rock solid together. There were a couple of old guys in that group that, and I say old, they may have been 28, 29, but seasoned professional footballers that had never really, made it, or never really been that I guess marquee style player.
Yeah.
So we were really fortunate to have those guys there that were just grounding. They really kept that group together. We had some brilliant games of cricket on the oval and things like that really brought the group together as a whole. And then finally we made it to the grand final, and a miracle flick pass from Benji to score, and a try-saving tackle that will probably go down as one of the greatest tackles in NRL history. That's and as they say, the next 3 days are a blur.
Okay. But in terms of your belief system about what is possible, how did that change?
Oh, look, I mean, I still get a little lump in my throat, and I just did just again then. The beauty of sport is like nothing, that I can compare to anything but the beauty of a massive winning business. But the thing that changes when you start to believe is that things just fall into place. Like, I've been very fortunate that shaped my career. I've now won Super Rugby titles, NRC titles, Olympic medals, world championships, national championships. Fortunate enough with Eastwood Rugby Union to win 4 out of 6 premierships in 6 years. That the belief that instilled in me, I can't even put it into words truthfully, but I have to try and explain what it does to you as a coach. And that is, once you've seen it once, you know what to look for again. Those tiny little moments that change, the energy that you need to bring when you walk into a room. The jokes that you need to throw when the shit hits the fan. That sometimes it's got to be you that throws yourself on the table as a lamb to the slaughter, because it's for the better of that entire group. And look, I think they're they're the big takeaways to that. There's always a moment, there's always a turning point, and if you're awake and aware enough to see them, you can make huge instrumental changes.
Would you say belief is contagious?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You surround yourself with people that believe enough,
Hmm.
and it just dominates the way you believe, and also just the way you structure your day. I've been involved in teams that have had negative connotations and negative thought processes, and I've gone through and seen teams that are positive, and maybe not just positive is probably the wrong word, but having belief in their ability and having belief that their training had been done the right way. It's an absolute game changer, and most people come along from the ride fairly quickly. But in saying that, I've been very clear on this, and I've seen some amazing examples of it. One bad apple can really spoil a bunch very, very quickly.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that in the teams that we've had over the years. When you're looking to cultivate that belief in others, as a coach, as a trainer yourself, you mentioned things like, those nuanced little conversations that happen at just the right time and in just the right way. You talked about the jokes, and then how you have to take responsibility and ownership for things so that you can build that morale again. How else? Because a lot of our listeners, I think, like starting their journey of excellence in whatever field they're in, they go through times where they absolutely believe in themselves, and they feel like they could have it all. They could feel like they could literally achieve anything. And then, they suffer a few knocks in the school of hard knocks, and then plateau again. How do you said, what to look for. What do you think some of the key ingredients is to cultivate that belief, not only in yourself, but I think more importantly, sometimes that belief in others?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, look, I think essentially, the number one thing that I'd flag there as a telltale piece for me is a mentor.
Mm.
Um, having that person that you've already told what your beliefs are to, you've already shown that pathway, you've got that connection, you understand that. So when you are having a shit day, you are having you've had, whether it be 5 sales calls that have all failed, or whatever the case may be, we've all been there. It's just, how do you turn the table on that? And for me, there's 3 really key ingredients. One is a mentor. 2 is, again, look, I'm a big writer and reader. Like, I revert to the same books, I reread the same things, I rewrite the same things. I have a whiteboard in the background here, which can contain who knows what on any given day, but it will always contain a couple of things. And over what is my right shoulder in your camera is an Alice in Wonderland quote about being curious.
Mhm.
I think that curiosity is the big thing. What if I did this? Okay, well, hang on. What about if I go throw myself in the ocean? Is that going to change the way I feel? Is that going to change my go train? Whatever it happens to be, you must just continue that process. And I think that the other essential, or the final essential piece of that is having a reset. You know, and that reset for me is always a training session or throwing myself in the ocean. But after, and as Cal, after having my first child early this year, I see that little face, and I'm a monumental shift in the right out back into the office. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that last one with the little ones. It definitely has changed you in a big way. But one of the things that I noticed about you when I first met you, much like probably, you being incredibly smart, but kind of, stepping back and not sort of being in the limelight, you are quite unassuming when you first meet you. One of the politest people I've ever met, and friendly. But like, you do just sit back and observe. And I think that's a part of what you're talking about there, staying curious. And I love that curiosity piece, because that's something that Connor and I speak about quite heavily, because we believe that when you are curious, you don't stay stagnant. You are able to keep that momentum up. You are able to keep moving, and it really opens up your neurology, and that's the big thing that we talk about. Your neurology changes through different environments. You talk about having a reset. We talk about state change. Do something that changes your state. Kind of talks very heavily about whenever he's having a day on the phones, it's just not working out the way that he wants. He does one of two things. He'll get out of the office and go for a walk and change his state up or change his environment up, or he'll go and call someone who was one of his biggest success stories or biggest advocates, and he'll feed off that, and that's a really powerful thing. One thing kind of we've danced around, but we haven't really spoke to directly is, and you're strength and conditioning, so you're looking at the physical side of a human being, right? But there is in that the changes in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, but actually start in the mind, right? It does start in the mindset, because the level at which you're willing to push yourself, the level of grit and resilience that you're able to have is determined very much by the way that you think. Can you riff on that? Because we had a David Neath on a couple of weeks ago. He was Israel Adesanya's mental coach. And I love talking to people that have actually been in these situations where there is a grand final on the line, and what happens in those locker rooms? How do you tap into the mindset, or is it something that is built up in the season through the hardships and the adversity that you have to overcome? Yeah, can you help us out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll just begin by saying I got goosebumps then again, just rethinking about all of those amazing moments in my career, right?
Mm.
And talk about changing mindset or changing a state of thinking. Those memories of success still create a physical reaction within me, but that's all based on what my brain does. And I talk about that, a lot during training to start with. I talk about the fact that, hey, you've been here before. You're just practicing the same thing. Whether it be a field training session for a rugby team or a gym session for someone else, you've listed, countless things that can change your mindset. But I think the key from my perspective around the physical side is most people's biggest challenge is actually getting into the gym, is actually getting out of the house to go for a walk, a run, a swim, a cycle. The difficulty that I see comes from lack of organization, lack of motivation, and also no repercussion of actions. That accountability piece is huge. Whether it be talking about a 45-year-old male wanting to make sure that I can still push around some 25-year-old kid when my daughter is old enough to date, or there'll be an imposing figure, if you will. But I think that the key is finding your why. Why you actually really want to do this, and whether it's a sales call, a training session, whatever it happens to be. We are the only one that can change our state of mind. We're the only one that can put ourselves into that right place. But the key is definitely having someone to talk to about it, having it, whether it's, in Connor's case, calling up a previous success story and rehashing that or reliving that, or for me, reliving a moment like a grand final win or something like that, or a gold medal. First time I watched one of my athletes on an Olympic podium was just, one of the greatest moments of my life, I can't even rival that to anything that I'd seen up until that moment, So again, you have to have something to draw back on and something to rehash that feeling to push towards.
Yeah. It's mind blowing when you think about that. And I think that one of the I guess the hidden secrets that you just let out into the public there was that you are stacking these states as well. You are, as soon as you can get some wind behind someone, as soon as they can feel that push of the sail and they start to feel that on a regular basis, I feel like those feelings start to compound and you start to build that inertia from that. But like you said, you have to have your skin in the game. You can't make any of that happen. You can't feel any of those wins unless you're in it. And sometimes the hard days, the challenges, you talked off air about how, one of the big challenges you had was you breaking your femur at a critical point in your career, but it actually kind of led you to some pretty amazing things with the grand final. But yeah, it is that motivation piece. And it is, like you said, finding out that we call them values, what's important to you. And we talk about a hierarchy of values and what's most important to people and looking at different contexts of life. And I remember a text message that you sent me earlier in the year that really kicked me in the guts. But it was, it was something to that effect. You knew exactly where I was at. I'd asked you a question around finding the time in the day to get to the gym, a la your example before. And you said, look at 20 years down the track, 25 years down the track, 30 years down the track, and wanting to be able to not just spend time with your kids and their families, but also, their kids as well. And I don't know, something about the way you wrote it at the time that you wrote it really, I'm getting a bit emotional now, but it got me really good. And I haven't missed a week since then. So it's
that's good.
I think that's a critical piece, right? Like, and I'm sure I've stuffed that up as well, by the way. Like there's no doubting that. I'm sure I've hit someone with one of those hard hitting messages, hard hitting sentences at the wrong time.
Yeah.
But I really pride myself on the fact that, I probably don't say too much in some environments. And like Cal said earlier, I stand back a little bit and I observe situations and whatnot. But I observe those situations because I'm looking for a cue. I'm looking for a critical point to whether it's inject a comment, inject something, but also understanding that, over the years, I've probably seen a lot of, times where people have talked too much rather than listen. And, the good old saying is, two ears, one mouth. So, listen 50% more than you talk.
Yeah. In sales, we say telling is not selling.
Yes.
And that resonates. So
the first to speak loses.
Yeah. So after the Tigers, because I think the Brumbies did an Australian Super Rugby team.
No, the Waratahs.
Did the Waratahs win it? Did they?
So they did win it, but I wasn't with them when they won it.
Okay.
I was already working in New Zealand at that point. So my career sort of taken me all over the world.
Yeah, in NZ. Where were you in NZ?
The shittiest place on the planet. It's
Huntley.
No, it's worse. It's called Invercargill.
Invercargill.
Now,
Isn't that where the fastest Indian is from?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Mate, it's an interesting story. The Rolling Stones were set to play in Invercargill, and they were set to play 2 nights in a row. Anyway,
With a crowd of 5,000.
Mate, I'm still unaware of why on earth they would.
Yeah, right.
And this is in the early 70s. So they'd been in town for 3 hours. They walked off stage and they left. Now, look, I mean, anyone who's been to Invercargill, and I'll tell you a quick little joke / story. My first day arriving in Invercargill, one of the Kiwi boys said to me, "Oh, do you know how to put socks on?" And I thought, oh, here we go. Here's a good old Kiwi Aussie joke. I'll humour this. And I said, no, look, yeah, I don't know how to put socks on. How do I do it? And he goes, well, what you do is you put one football sock on, then you put a garbage bag on, and then you strap the garbage bag to your foot, and you put another football sock on and strap the garbage bag to it. And I remember just kind of turning my head to the side, wondering what the hell he was talking about. I later on understood that Invercargill averages 310 days a year of rain.
Yeah. Oh.
The only way to stop your feet from getting foot rotten is
So
hell of a place.
Right.
And I then went from there to the Highlanders. I spent a couple of seasons with the Highlanders, won a premiership there. Then went to Japan, then came back to Australia, and have kind of been here ever since.
Were you with Union for Japan?
No, I was not Japanese rugby union. I was with a team in the top league.
Okay. You had a family friend, Murray, Jeremy Murray. I forget.
Okay.
James Arledge. I used to hang out with a guy called James Arledge. He used to play for Auckland Blues, and
Okay.
I think he went over to Japan. I'm 44, so and he's my age. So he
Yeah.
went
Okay.
playing.
Look, Japanese rugby is an absolute mecca, and I mean going leaps and bounds again now. Like, I keep my eye on the Japanese top league, and I mean some of our best players, Will Genia, Floyd Cooper, etc., dominating their skill to this day, and also making about 5 times what they could make.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I remember a little conversation we had down at the Evoca Beach Surf Life 7 Club. We may not have been having a beer. And I remember, because I was a league boy, I grew up in Central Queensland, big rugby league area, Bleeding Maroon type sort of area. And I remember you talking to me about rugby union. I never had it described to me the way that you did, with the passion that you did. And, it really compelled me to like look at it more, because I've never really taken much time for it, except for some of the World Cups I got into. But it was interesting the way that you described it as like all the different like plays and all the different moves, and it almost sounded like an advanced version of chess.
Yeah. I joke about this all the time, that rugby union is a sport for every body shape. With our little nippy halfbacks that could potentially weigh in the low 70s, right up to my props that could be 150 kilos, and to the intricate game of chess with a battle in the middle of it.
Yeah. Can you riff on that a little bit more though? Because I just remember that conversation being quite compelling, because I never even really looked at it that way. Like I guess from the outside, for me, you see the breakdown in the ruck, and it sometimes gets a bit messy, and
it looks like a game of stacks on to the 100 and beholder.
Yeah, I'm wondering why they're not getting back their 10 and all that stuff. So for the uninitiated, because I know Connor's a big fan as well. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess the beauty of our game is a 15-person aside, whether that be male or female, and it's every position really has its unique talents, but also, as I said before, every position means that there is a position for every person on the planet, if you will. From the tiny little nippy guy to the big bopper. And the beauty of the collision and combat is that your little 70-kilo guy is going to have to eventually tackle your 150 guy, and you're doing your best to get a mismatch so that does occur. But look, I think that the interesting thing, I was in Melbourne last week with work, and I had an AFL guy ask me a very similar question. He said, "Mate, I just don't get this rugby union. Like, it looks like a gigantic game of stacks on." And I said, "Well, look, your game is like a marathon for 50 blokes. Well, mine is realistically, we're trying to find the shortest way to the try line. So we're trying to make sure we do the least amount of running, as opposed to you guys who do the most around." So
Yeah.
I mean, I love the sport, and I love the differences and the nuances between not just every position, but also the characteristics of what can occur. And I think it's a bit of a metaphor for life around the fact that, how many times can you be knocked down and keep getting up? And I think that's where, the passion behind sport really, really shines through.
Yeah, it's it lit a fire under me. I actually started to pay a bit more just. It's hard to avoid when you've got yourself and Brendan non-stop talking about it, and you want to be involved in the conversation. So Connor rocks up to work nearly every other day and talks about that. I'm a little bit like that with the UFC, but yeah, cool. And that's fascinating. And then you got into from there, you moved more directly into into training and coaching more heavily. And then you sort of just switched up the business model. And I guess that's another thing I wanted to talk about today is you have been doing like this great work, but behind the closed doors, to get to you is challenging, is difficult at that first part of your career, because you're working at such a high level. Then you've opened that up to just about everyone, talking about having a spot for everyone on the team, with rugby union. You've made now your expertise, your advanced way of thinking. I do want you to speak a little bit to your philosophy around movement as well, because it isn't your general way of thinking around it. Yeah, can you speak to how when the shift or when the business model change happened? Because it is quite a modern way of thinking about working out.
Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connect Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely. What we love doing is lighting people up and having them realize that their future is bright and most importantly, making a difference in this world. So we are very excited to be able to share this with you.
If you want to turn every prospect into a Forever Client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Look, I guess, again, it would be remiss of me to not explain a little bit about, the online training model itself, and then also how I ended up where I am, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, the world of fitness changed no different to the rest of the world when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, there were all of the gyms that I was working with, mentoring, helping, helping their programming, et cetera, were like, shit, how do we continue to make money here? And the pivot to online was dramatic. It was within 5 days, most of the gyms that I was working with were online at that stage. And I think what really occurred through COVID for us is that we worked out not only ways to make fitness accessible to everyone, but to make what we do as strength and conditioning coaches available right down to general population. And I hate the term general population, but I'm still going to use it because at the moment I don't have a better one. Everyday people is probably, the simplest way to word that general population piece, because the reality is I had all of these years and years of programs. I've got, I've got hard drives full of programs I've written. And once they're written and done, they just kind of sit in hard drive, right? And for me, it was a matter of going, hang on a sec, well, who else could benefit from that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that moment where I went, hang on a sec, what about thinking about, 16-year-old me back in Tamworth with no potential way of finding a weight training program. I walked into a PCYC as a 16-year-old and saw these guys, lifting mega weights above their head to what I thought at the stage was, all probably natural, but it probably wasn't. But let's not go down that path. But but the funny part of that was I was in awe from minute one. So I was like, okay, well, hang on a sec. How can I be the coach that I wish I had when I was 16? How can I be the coach that I wish I had when I was 20? How can I be the coach that I wish I had when I was 25? Whatever the case may be. And for me, there's a strong piece of this is, the longevity piece. And the second piece is, the good old strong dad philosophy, I would want to be that guy, like I said earlier, that, my teenage daughter's, boyfriend / girlfriend, who knows what will happen these days, but is somewhat, in awe of not only my physique, but my presence. I want to be that guiding light and that shining arc, I guess, for those people. But also, show the example of, fitter, faster, stronger, healthier. And that's how that philosophy evolved. But, my online programming kind of started because somebody asked. And the next thing I realized, well, hang on a sec, if I can provide that for one person, how can I provide that to more? And I branched out and started, programming for people who were potentially, in different countries. Some of my Olympians were sort of my first ever real online clients because, especially my rowers who I've had a huge amount of success with over the years, they were based in Lucerne, Switzerland. So they would send me a video of them doing a particular lift, and I'd critique it and then send them messages back. Now, that was before there were any real sophisticated programming software. So it was pretty diabolic. I'd be watching these pixelated videos of someone doing a deadlift trying to work out where the hell their back was, rather than this huge big pixel that had broken the chain. But I guess that's kind of how it all started. And now, I sit here in my office, and standing desk behind me and seated desk here, that I spend a fair bit of time now, programming for individuals all over the world and all over Australia. Some of which are general population style programs. Others are fully individualized, and for me, that ranges from, I've got 3 triathletes at the Kona World Ironman Championships at the moment. I've got Kendrick Louis, who just completed, he came 4th at the Coolangatta Gold. I've got rugby union athletes and rugby league athletes all over the world, soccer players here in Sydney and Queensland. It's pretty, from a sport perspective, that side, and then you've got all of the general population that are just wanting to be fitter, faster, stronger, happier, and healthier. So yeah.
I mean, how is this your? That's quite a substantial client list. Is it contacts in the network? Is it reputation? Your name's been thrown around certain circles. You put someone on the podium. I think you said a gold medalist, or you help someone become a gold medalist through their strength and conditioning. And then that someone would say, who are you working with? And then, oh, it's Clint. And then you
look,
put in contact.
I guess there's a couple of really key moments, and I think for your listeners and the people who are watching this podcast, I've really put myself out there. I'm off to Singapore in 2 weeks to work for a techno gym where I'll do a presentation to their national strength conditioning and sport sciences faculties, in front of about 4,500 people, about technology in sport. I've put myself out there. I was in Melbourne last week, as I said. The week before, Australian Fitness Expo in front of 1,000 people. So for me, it's about making sure that you're the person that people think of when it comes down to it. Even, as podcasts like this, this is, as I said, probably 60 or 70 podcasts that I've done over the years. It's making sure that, to start with, you're one of the people that people want to hear from. You're one of the people that is willing to put yourself out there. In the health and fitness world, you look at the likes of James Smith and so on and so forth, and he talks about the concept that he started making content, dodgy little white wall in his lounge room with a shitty little camera, but he started when others just did not start. And look, that's definitely a philosophy that I've taken on, and that's also comes down to training. You must start. The longer you hold off, the harder it becomes, and that brain's another little muscle that just needs to be pumped, and continue motivation, because every time you do it, you're just one step closer to continuing to do it more and more and more.
I think Cal did a post the other day about that, didn't you?
Yeah. Which one specifically?
It could have been a 22K. It was a
okay, yeah. People who the overarching story behind that was like
hairdressing, I think it was.
Yeah, the person who had all the talent but didn't take any action, and then the person that definitely didn't have the talent but was willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And the one that didn't have the talent but was willing to do anything ended up being
I'm pretty sure I'm the one that doesn't have any talent.
I don't know about that. I was going to actually talk to one of your big talents that I think is a really another key to your success, and I think this is something that Connor's fantastic at as well, is when you're working with someone, no matter how big or small their account is, you make them feel like they're the only person you're working with. And you have so many touch points with them, whether it's, liking one of their posts or jumping in the DMs or, just a phone call. I remember, you're like, we're going to have a 5-minute call at, 7:30 every Monday type thing. And I think that's another one of your, one of your skills. You're the everyman. You're able to talk to, the football stars, the medalists, but you're able to talk to the the dad at home that's like trying to get, out of the home office to start get moving again. So I think that's one of your superpowers that you haven't really shared is that, you might go to these big events, you might go to all these podcasts, but you're also willing to have the conversations with the people, on the ground level and make them literally feel like they're the only person in the room. So yeah, that's definitely also
it reminds me of that question, Callum. I might ask Clint. Hey, Clint, what do you think you're the best in the world at? That even on your worst day, you'd still be better at someone on their best day.
Oh wow. Well, that is an unbelievably good question. I absolutely love it. Look, I guess, that the hardest part of that is, I mean, I grew up in a small country town, and humility is a big piece of it. And I'm literally sitting here with a little lump in my throat again, going, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to say, and you've got to say it, but at the same time, don't be a fuckwit, right? Like it's okay, right. And look, I think, what I hope that I'm about to answer is that I hope that someone else would answer the same thing about me if that was the case. Um, I have 3 tattoos on my rib cage: strength, courage, and integrity. And I think that I'm courageous. I think that I have the courage to do things, even on my worst day, that some people would never have the courage to do. And whether that's standing in front of 4,500 people talking about technology, whether that's having a conversation with someone about, mental health or suicide or whatever it happens to be, I hope that that I can continue to be courageous every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. I was introduced to you by a mutual friend, and just straight off the bat, you definitely exhibit all of those traits. And I think one of the things that you can really tell, because I'm a bit of an observer as well, is how people interact when they're in a group of friends. And some people favor talking to one person or another. You're somebody who, whether male, female, or young, old, or anything in between, you're willing to just sit down, be present with somebody, and ask really good questions to have them open up and feel comfortable around you. So I think that's also something I'd say that you would do well on your worst day that most others can't do on their best day. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you got going on at the moment, and how people can get in contact with you, how they can get involved with what you're doing, and yeah.
Cool. Well, mate, pretty as I said, I've got a couple of cool little irons in the fire, if you will. As I said, off to Singapore next week to do some lecturing or presenting over there. That's for a company called Techno Gym, who are a major gym supplier. They do.
Oh, the Technogen. They do all the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I helped with their latest range, which is called BioStrength, which is probably the most advanced thing I've ever had any interaction with. You and I would sit down on it, scan in, and it knows exactly what our weight, what our strength profile, what our goals are, what we were wanting to achieve. So I've had a big part with the development of that, and that's gonna revolutionize the world of rehab, especially from things like spinal cord severing, things like that, even down to like an ACL rehab model where, in sport and those kind of things. But that's the first one. Then I have a company called Fit Dimensions, whereby we mentor young personal trainers right through from their, I guess, through the process of getting educated through their Cert 3 and Cert 4, right through to in gym. We manage all of their leads. We help them understand social media. We help them with whatever marketing solutions and things that they're looking for. And then finally, and probably my one true love, which is my actual programming. So I have 3 different levels of online programming. I have fully individualized. Then which means, we do 6-week blocks, phone calls at the beginning and end of each block, run through all exercises, fully individualized for each person. Then we have group coaching, which means everyone has the same style of program. You just choose what lane you want to stay in. And then finally, that I also have a series where I write programming for individual sporting teams. So at the moment, for example, here, I live in Avoca in New South Wales. I do all the programming for the Avoca Beach Sharks Rugby Union Club. So I send that off, and the coaches run through that and ask questions. And again, they can stick to their specialization, but also get the expertise that I have built up over the last 27 years.
Yeah, right. I mean, with that expertise, you said you had all these programs sitting on a hard disk drive, and you're pulling them out now. You're people an opportunity, and every person who would like to see the physique of a rower, of an Olympic rower, and go, I'd like to resemble that.
Yeah.
You'll have a program that you can utilize. It's not just a theoretical program. You've produced world champions using this program, so it's I guess the most elite level that one could get in the world.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, humility becomes a piece of sales that is a very difficult one to roll 2 sentences together here. But, I want to provide the service that I provided to an Olympic athlete, to everyday Joe, everyday, Joanne, whatever it happens to be. It doesn't matter whether it's male, female. I believe that each person should be guided by the best possible coach that they can find and afford.
Yeah.
So how can people find you, Clint?
Yeah. Look, I'm huge on Instagram. It's probably my biggest field. Clint at Hill Strength.
Just on that quickly, Clint at Hill Strength on Instagram. But one of the things that you'll notice when you start following Clint on Instagram is the testimonials. You can literally just post testimonials all day long, and you would literally be there on there 24/7 absorbing that. And it's really cool to see, because I love, there's so many big promises that are out there at the moment in the online space in general. And it's just so good to see the videos and the testimonials that people have written and the comments that they've made in your comment section of your posts, because it's just so real and down to earth and so relatable. And, you're seeing somebody do a squat in the gym, or you're seeing someone out on the running track, and it takes you on a journey of what it could be like to be Clint's client. So check that out too. Sorry, I cut you off, Clint.
No. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. And as I said to you guys off air, I'd like to offer all of your followers an opportunity to jump on board with a 50% off a 12-week program. Just the code CONNECT, and we'll get you sorted. I think the big piece of that for me, and talking over the last couple of years with you, Cal, and whatnot, but most of us want to make the jump, but we also just haven't had the right push. I think it's really clear to me, I've been exactly where most of your followers are. I've come back from injury. I've come back from, times where I just haven't been motivated to train. I understand what a normal person goes through. I don't want I don't want to sit here and bullshit to people. Like authenticity is a huge piece for me. And I think it's really open and, being open and being honest with what that actually looks like. So, I think it's critical to show some vulnerability, but also to show that, with a little push in the right direction, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's so easy to get involved with it. It's very clearly laid out, and even if you aren't 100% sure on the exercises, all the videos there ready to go, and it's something that you can take with you to the gym as well. So,
Well,
cool. We'll have that.
Since you've been working together over the last 6 weeks or so, Cal, you haven't missed a week. You haven't. You've been consistent. I've seen a difference in your physique, because obviously working with Clint has helped you stay in your lane and stay on track with your fitness goals. And I firsthand, having that rock solid mentor there to help you and guide you and give you that inspiration on a daily basis if you need it is absolutely invaluable. So I can see that firsthand.
Someone that actually gives a damn as well. It's not just about, it's not just about the transaction. He is really heavily invested in the transformation process as well. So we'll have the link in the description. If you're watching this and you want to know more on the live or on Facebook, you can DM me and we can put you in touch with Clint.
Brilliant. Clint, my man, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure to have you, an honor to have someone of your caliber sharing so generously with our audience. I hope everyone who was listening and will listen will grab something from it and apply it. And Cal, thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Clint.
Thanks so much, guys. I think, last little takeaway for yourselves and your listeners is that starting anything now is better than waiting till tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, buddy. Thank you.
See you later.
Hey guys, Callum and Connor here from Connect Coaching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Unplugged podcast. We're jumping in to let you know about something really exciting. If you are a practitioner, a coach, or a trainer in the alternative therapy modality space, the Forever Client Matrix is something that we've modeled in the last 30 combined years, both Connor and my experience. And we've turned it into a 2-day intensive, and we want to give you a preview of that, the Forever Client Matrix.
Absolutely.
We want to make the bar for them to enter into that program very, very low and have them get incredible results.
I've sold about $40 million worth, and together we've sold about $100 million worth with our teams.
That's right. We believe that trust and reliability is the currency of the future. So if you want to turn every transaction to a transformational experience, if you want to turn every prospect into a Forever client, then please click on the link below in the description and get instant access now to your preview of the Forever Client Matrix.
Enjoy.